Hello, this is Justin. You're listening to Talk Junkie, and today's a little different. Today may be a lot different. I've decided to hit record at the bottom of the hill that I'm currently walking up. I'm recording this outside while walking with a different microphone setup than usual. Figure it out eventually. But I just want to kind of, record while I walk. It's something I've done in the past. I've been in nature while doing these. Just to my recall, not on a walk, but it's possible that I have, because I've had the idea forever. Being outside changes how I feel. It changes my thought process. I do a lot of thinking when outside and when I'm at my normal job, which I'm currently back at. I spend a good majority of my time outside. So that's where I get most of the ideas for podcast episodes and things of that nature. And then the reading and the searching for the podcast comes later, which as of late is almost impossible to do. Trying to research things in today's times should be easier than any point in history, but to find real factual information may seem harder to me now. It's definitely harder to me now than it was 5 years ago. It's probably easier for me than it was 25 years ago. But despite the increase in availability over the last 20 years, the confusion in what's real and what's not over the last 5 have grown drastically. And then I was researching for 2 different podcasts. One on autism and ADHD and ADD and behavioral issues and how we deal with those, how we classify those, what they are, and kind of their implications on bad behavior in kids. And the other was about the hydroxychloroquine claims that have got big in. See, to me, having an opinion or a belief or just an educated thought on something is very important, and I want it to be correct when I can make it correct. You understand? Like, I want it to be accurate at any opportunity I have to make it accurate. There's been times that that's not been the case. I don't know if I mentioned it on a podcast or not yet. I posted a quote that I was almost sure pre-internet, or at least pre-social media for me, because a lot of people got into social media a lot earlier than myself. I wasn't really an early adapter. I met my wife. Well, I've known my wife my whole life. We started talking via something called ICQ, which I quit using shortly after we started dating. I did very little in message rooms before that. What was the other one before that? I don't even remember. It's almost MySpace. Very limited on MySpace compared to what most people use. I was a late adopter. Then when I did get on there, we really only used it for the web show. And then I was off fairly quick. Like I said, we used it for the band and we used it for a web show. My friend Tyler and I done, but on and off fairly quickly. I probably I was years late to Facebook. I don't know exactly when Facebook started, but I would have to say I've not been on Facebook maybe 6 years, 7 possibly. I don't know. And I would assume, based on things I've seen, it's much older than that. And that's been on and off. The real Instagram, to where I'm actually posting and understanding kind of how it works and making contact with people, has been this year. I have one in the past, but I didn't understand. Same with Twitter, and I'm off Twitter again. But I had assumed, that's the wrong way to say it. I thought in my head that I'd heard this quote early on, and that it was from Mein Kampf. I'm going to tell you something about Mein Kampf. I read Mein Kampf, as Donnie Baker would say, probably circus 1999, 2000. No, I graduated in 2000. Circus 2000. And I understand how podcasting works and email works. I understand it's actually circa. And if I don't say that, I shouldn't say that. It's just the joke go. And anyway, Circus 2000. I read Mein Kampf. I don't have the best of memory. I'm not a saint. I've done things in the past I shouldn't have done, from drugs to alcohol to head injuries. Don't have the best of memory. I see this quote being circulated on Facebook, attributed to Adolf Hitler through Mein Kampf. Understand, I think everyone should read Mein Kampf. I'm not a Hitler supporter. Actually, to the opposite. But I think Mein Kampf does a couple of things, and one thing it does is everybody always goes, well, how did Hitler get all these good people to do such bad things? I think it gives you insight into Hitler. I mean, for example, the book is called Mein Kampf, which I believe means My Struggle. It's an interesting look at how his thought process worked and how he looked at himself to some degree. Again, I'm not one for censorship of anything, and I believe that as much exposure as you get to different ideas, the easier it is for you to understand, especially the bad. But regardless, whether you agree with the book or not, or with reading the book or not, I see this quote, and it sounded familiar, and it sounded accurate, and I shared it. For an intelligent person that I think very highly of, saw it and said, actually, that wasn't Hitler. That's can't be substantiated that was him. That's a false claim. It definitely wasn't in Mein Kampf. And for that matter, the quote said something to the effect of him slowly taking things away, and they said Hitler didn't do anything slowly. He went ball to the wall basically with everything. I still disagree strongly with that last part. I think Hitler's rise was not the slowest of all rises, but just he had a lot to go through, so it took a while. I mean, he took over the Socialist Party, the German Socialist Party, the Nazi Party. He's definitely not a socialist or left-wing at all. He would have to be described as being very right-wing, but I think that gets missed in history. He was lumped in because of the name socialist in the party. But regardless, the quote wasn't his, and I verified it, and it was not his. I posted back on there, I'd made a mistake. This is not him. Someone sent me a private message and said, it doesn't really matter that Hitler didn't say it. It sounds like something he would have said, and it gets the point that you were trying to make across. No, not really. It does matter. The point I'm trying to get across was that certain things that are done throughout history are wrong, and that Hitler had done these things, and that it could be, he was proof that it could be done again, because it had been done in the past. There was precedent set for it in the past, so therefore it was very plausible for it to happen again. And then they replied, yeah, but see, I got the point, because I know what you were trying to say. I think some people would feel that what I was trying to say leaned a certain direction politically. And this person supported it, even though it was inaccurately stated, because it leaned that direction. The person that called it out is a very intelligent person, again, that I have a whole lot of respect for. I truly believe he called it out because it was inaccurate. Because that's the type of guy he is. Whether it was accurate or not, there are people who would have called it out as inaccurate or needing to be checked, regardless of if they knew, because they leaned a different way politically. I don't lean in either one of those directions. I try to stand directly straight up like an evolved human and not a primate. But just because I agree with something that an idea or a notion that one leaning politically does not make me that party. That's part of our problem here. But I recognized that I had made a mistake. I reposted an actual fact check with it saying that it was false and said I messed up. Someone very intelligently pointed this out and I credited them for it. And that was my bad. I left it up for another week probably, and then the problem with the post is when you saw it, the first thing that popped up was the picture was inaccurate, and a lot of people were not even taking time to look at the second picture and saying things in support of it and not taking time to read. So I just deleted the post. I went back to one of the many places I'd seen the post and left a comment. It was not received well. And, many people admitted that they didn't know either if it was real or not, or that they knew it was fake, but it was the principle behind the post. That's a ridiculous statement. Now, upon researching this cure for COVID, the entire discussion over the hydroxychloroquine, probably saying that wrong, but that's the way we're going to go with it. In regards to it, a video was posted and then taken down because it was false information. I was able to find a good chunk of the video. This is where I have to be a realist. 2 problems. 3 problems. One, I don't understand this at a level that I can intelligently determine if this is real information or fake information. I have to research it. Let's put that on the back burner for a minute. 2, I'd call it production value. I don't know. Maybe Tarantino has spoiled me. I don't know. It's a fun video to watch all with it. It was long. It was a press conference like the deal. It was long. There was another video with them standing outside. All long. And excuse me. I've developed this habit of yawning excessively the whole time I record podcasts, and I don't yawn at any other time. It is developed as a habit of doing these early in the morning when I was tired, and I do not understand how to break the habit. That's okay. So that the second issue being, I skipped in and out of stuff in the video. Thirdly, Dr. Emanuel, forget her first, Stella Emanuel maybe, was the first individual to pop up with any name recognition to where anybody's recognized me. I went and researched her. I'm not big on the joining of science and religion, politics and religion, or medicine and religion. I believe everybody has a right to have personal beliefs, but to me, what someone is willing to believe personally shows me a lot about how their thought process goes, even professionally. She, to me, appears to be someone whose thought process, religiously, personally, however you want to. I watched other videos of her. I think she's crazy as a lamb. So, I understand she's not the only person there. Now, Facebook, Instagram, whoever else, I'll delete this video. They suspend people for sharing it. All conservatives who shared it. So, you can tell two things about that. One, this video catered to a certain demographic that a certain party was trying to get votes from. And that's evident in who shares it. If you look on your friends line, you know who's who. And who blasts it. Two, it's very, very telling on these social media's organizations and how they lean politically. Because to me, and again, maybe there's something I was missing, but in totality, maybe, and I would like to be pointed out what I'm missing, but in individual aspects that I watched, nothing made was so outrageous or so crazy, and again, maybe I'm missing something. Some people tell me I've seen a completely different video, and this is possible. I don't know, but I saw nothing that warranted being deleted. But in fairness, I thought, let's look into the situation. Newsweek, in a 3 to 4 week span, I found, and this appears to me completely be accurately be Newsweek's website. I found 4 different stories, I believe it was. 2, but one about this video and how these people were fakes. One maybe newer or just a couple days old or a day older than that, talking about how hydroxychloroquine was an actual treatment and was working and where it was working in other countries and death rates in South America and somewhere in a European country, not Germany, I don't believe, somewhere around that area. I was confused in trying to find this information, and you can't just simply, unfortunately, Google, is this real or is this fake? Because if you find a site that says it's real, within a few minutes, just a few seconds of reading, you can tell that that's a politically skewed article. And exactly the same with trying to find something that says it's fake. I harp about fake news all the time, and the news is not even apologetic about it anymore. They don't even try to hide it. They're very open about how fake they really are. And that's okay. I don't get any information from them. I hold them no great respect or put them on any level of importance in my decision making. But there has to be somewhere to gain information. And it is not too much to require. It's not too much to ask. And it's not impossible for it to be done without an overwhelming influence from a political point of view, a political party. You could never take away any one person's political leaning, and it's going to influence anything they do to some degree, myself included. Okay, I'm never going to make anything that's Republican leaning or anything that leans in the vein of a Democrat or what people today call liberals that aren't really liberals. I'm never going to do that because that's not my political leanings. So it's easy for me to not do that. What's hard for me is to not immediately dismiss everything both sides do. What's hard for me is to not depict a centralist, moderate view on things, because that's kind of my politics. That's kind of where I like. Yeah, there's, yes, I do like Tulsi Gabbard. That's as far to that far left liberal, and I don't know how far left she is, but that's as far left as I'll lean generally. There have been Republicans that I've felt that way about. I despise Cheney like no other. And then you go to the opposite side of that, and you'll hear me constantly talk about Clinton. But on the other hand, you may hear me say great things about FDR, but you'll when it comes to how we done things in World War II, I'm not a big fan of that. And once he was out of office and we dropped that atomic bomb, and we look now and we have the information we have, and we have the comments we had from Truman, and we have all the information that we have, that's a war crime. So you'll never hear me say anything good about Harry or Clinton. I've got nothing to sit and brag on Trump about. But I will find someone here and there. And look, as libertarians go, there's been very few people ever run as a libertarian candidate that I thought wasn't crazy. So I'm going to have political influences on anything I say because it's how I feel. But I try to be fair about it. But if nothing else, up front I say, always, I do not support the left or the right. So that coming into it, you're not going to hear pro-left, you're not going to hear pro-right. And if you come looking for those things, and you don't expect to find them, because you're told abruptly and immediately it's not there. But I wanted to do a podcast because I posted something involving hydroxy, whatever, chloroquine. Post and ask a question. Then I post another one, and just looking for information. The leftists guided me to heavily, openly leftist influenced information, and the right pushed me to the right and extremely openly right influenced information. The left only wants to point out that the one lady is a lunatic and believes in demon rape, and I watched the video of her sermon. I agree, she's a lunatic. The right only wants to point out that she's African American and she's a doctor, and you told us to listen to doctors, but not this one. You told us to listen to African American voices, but not this one. You told us to listen to women, but not this one. It just becomes politically charged and no real information gets out. So you're left with a situation where you don't know how to find the truth. That scares me. Like, COVID-19 doesn't scare me. A lot of things that they've tried to hold us down with fear doesn't scare me. But not being able to find the truth, well, that scares me. That scares me on a high level. And I think it should scare everybody. And I don't know the solution. I posted something about TV being bad for you, and it was in reference to the news. And somebody, again, that I think is intelligent and that I think is thoughtful, felt like that was lunacy, that my statement on that was crazy. They openly admitted that the news was biased and the news wasn't real, and that you just had to work really hard and dig really hard to find the truth if you wanted it, and that you really just had to look for the lesser of two evils. I don't ever want to look at the lesser of two evils. Let's cut the head off both evils and look for some good. It's bad, and then who determines what's good? It has to be a value system. It has to be something. And some people would say, well, America lost its value. And to that I would say, when did America have it? So many people would say, especially my grandmother, the one that passed away, who didn't particularly enjoy company very much, would say, well, in the 50s was the best time in the country, and we didn't have to lock our doors and this and this. She come from a family that had some money, and a white family at that. She was an African American in the 50s, so there's not value in that. If you were a coal miner here in eastern Kentucky, struggling, like probably half a mile from where she lived, doing everything you could to make it during one of the many busts of the coal industry, then there's not values in times you want to return to. So that is objective. That's comes down to being a personal thing to when was good times and when was bad times and things of that nature, and to what we determine to be true. And I understand that on a political landscape and on an idealistical landscape, opinion can't be proven true or false, but opinion needs to be presented as opinion, because that's what it is. And, political beliefs, because that's what they are, is beliefs, can't be proved right or wrong because they're beliefs. That's what they are. But my understanding, and see, I have to limit it to that because that's all I can base this off of at this point in this time right now. To my understanding, there's been studies done on hydroxychloroquine, and if it works, if it doesn't work. These people are claiming actual cases, patients. That means there's hard data out there. If there's hard data out there, and we don't go through the hoops of trying to make numbers match what we want them to say, if we just look at raw, hard data, and we try to find something in a way, because don't get me wrong, information and data and numbers can be twisted and blown out of proportion, but if you give the real numbers and you present them accurately, it's hard to hide the truth. So, I understand that the news is everything. We're fear-mongers. We like to be afraid. I don't remember if it was someone on Truman's cabinet or someone during FDR's cabinet. I believe it, and it might have been Truman himself. It said, we're a wartime economy, or something to that. Again, let's not get opinionated here. Look it up, Google it yourself. But basically, that we function better as a wartime economy. We were late coming into World War II for a lot of different reasons. And I talk to people often about World War II, especially older people. When my grandfather was still alive and he had the store, we'd speak about World War II for a long time. People didn't have an issue in the United States with Hitler at first. Not even really that much after World War I, it didn't appear. At least, especially not people here where I'm from, people that I was able to speak to. And I understand these people were much older, and I was very, very young. But even, people like my grandfather would say, well, we were always told this about the war, and we were always told that about the war. My grandfather was born in 1938. So, obviously, that puts a damper on knowing much about World War I. But it's not just being alive during that time. It's the way information and opinion is transmitted. And when we look back now, we've got a lot of historical documentation. A lot of people didn't have a problem with Hitler. A lot of people, there were Nazi parties in the United States. But nobody wanted to be in the war with Hitler, especially not World War II. Actually, to get reelected. The president actually going into his third term, maybe his second, but I believe it's going into his third term, said, we will not declare war on Germany, or we will not go to war with Germany. We have no interest in war with Germany. And we stayed out of that for a long time. Actually, us declaring war on Japan after Pearl Harbor is what made Hitler declare war on us. We didn't have to declare war. That situation started out a whole lot differently than it ended up. That situation started out with our real intention, as far as our president was concerned, as a country, going into that war was to end French and British imperialism, and to stop the mistreatment of, I believe, the quote was even said, brown people and people of color all over the world. And not to do it. And we didn't do a whole lot in the first part of World War II. And as a whole, with the exception of the losses at Pearl Harbor and some other battlefronts, we didn't do very much on the battlefield in Europe. We concentrated mainly on the Japanese. And Russia was treated very, very poorly after the war, especially under the next president in office. That's not what I was taught. I look back, and I can find that information and find it easily now, find it openly, and find that a lot of people who lived it when I was younger saw it that way. A lot of people who were not that far removed, but were taught it from an earlier age, perceived it that way. I don't know when the shift came. The shift came later. And it was not portrayed that way. It was not portrayed that way to me. Maybe it was to you. If it was, let me know. But it wasn't portrayed that way to me. So that tells me that before the internet, it was even hard sometimes to get real information, which, of course, I've always brought up the statement, he who controls the past controls the future. He who controls the present controls the past. But from Columbus to Thanksgiving to all of these things, I knew we'd been lying to a lot of children. But when I go to check the facts on those things, at least for now, the fact that Truman stole his spot as vice president is verifiable in that. The fact that Truman was an avid racist is there. The fact that we dropped the bomb on Japan for no reason at all, out of no need at all, was there. The fact that all the generals around him felt that it was the wrong thing to do is there. But for how much longer is that negative information about us going to be there? Because in China, I would have to assume that you're not going to find negative information about China. And to that, a lot of people will say, well, we're not China. It's a completely different country. The Chinese, they locked COVID-19 patients in their apartments and welded the doors shut. We've not done that. Not yet. Every step in the wrong direction is a step closer in the wrong direction. That's not rocket science. Every step in division equals in further division. I figured that out on my own, and I've never sent a rocket to the moon. I'm not an extremely intelligent person, by no stretch of the imagination. But right now, there is an argument that'll only last for the day till the next news cycle comes through, raging on in the news. And it's also raging on social media, and that may last a while longer. That may last another month. All this stuff will come back up in November and be regurgitated when we pretend to get to pick a leader. But with all that going on, I can't find actual information. I've had this discussion over email with a few of you, and I've got links. I know you've sent links, and you're going to send emails saying you sent links. The Mirror, whatever it is in the UK, that's not reputable news. Neither is the Weekly World News or Entertainment Weekly or, New York Times, Washington Post, people that are obviously politically influenced, but still, I've got to look at something. Vice, Newsweek, Time. But a lot of these are op-eds, and a lot of these and a lot of them now are simply saying opinion out from them. There's a lot of opinion pieces out there. There's a lot of stuff I haven't had a chance to go through, and there's a lot of research papers and things of that nature that I'm not qualified to read. So how do we get the truth, and how do we determine that's the truth? And we're not ourselves capable of looking at the raw data and determining the truth. Who do we determine we're going to trust? Are you going to trust Donald Trump? Is that who you're going to trust? I'm trying to be fair. Because I can't do that. I just can't trust Donald Trump. There's zero record with him that there's anything to still trust. Do we trust Biden? He's wanting us to trust him on race relations and Black Lives Matter, but I know what his lawmaking abilities have gotten us, and if I was an African American, I'm not going to trust Biden. After some of the statements that Trump's made, I'm not going to trust Trump. We trust the Republican Party. They're responsible for Cheney and Bush. They're responsible for Trump. Do we trust the Republican Party? Do we trust the Democrat Party? Kamala Harris was eat alive. Tulsi Gabbard, who conveniently was disappeared from the election campaign after that and never really allowed to get a foothold. And everything she said was accurate. Everything she said was verifiable. And everything she said painted Kamala Harris an awful lot. Awful lot. There's a single mother out there even possibly considering listening and trusting Kamala Harris? This is the most important question. If hydroxychloroquine works or not. It's not a question of if you trust Republicans or Democrats. Because, see, Republicans and Democrats have nothing to do with scientific medical conversation. They're busy screwing up every other aspect of our life. At what point did we allow them, their spokespersons, their parties, and their news organizations that they owned, that they influence, that they push, since when did we allow them to determine what's real scientifically, what's factually pertinent? See, that's it. If you listen to this podcast in sequence and you get to that point where I start asking you, do I trust Trump? Do I trust... Think back. Think how odd that sounded, how out of the pocket that felt, how weird it is to go from this discussion about scientific medical research and it being flawed to just out of the blue, talking about Trump versus Biden, Republican versus Democrat. Then you know how I feel when I'm trying to figure out if, God forbid, somebody else in my family gets this, because we've already had one person get it in my immediate family, in my household, who is fortunately okay. And we've had one family member get it and die, who's in my extended family. So all I want to know is that if this happens and somebody else gets it, what do I do? Do I put them on a vent? Are vents killing people? I mean, statistically, it looks like vents are not helping people. A lot of good doctors are saying vents aren't helping people, but they're not being allowed to say it very much publicly. Do I allow them to put them on hydroxychloroquine? Will it make the symptoms worse? Will it make the symptoms better? I don't give a crap about who you're voting for in November. You're a sheep going to vote for a wolf, and it doesn't matter which button you push. You're still a sheep, and they're still wolves. And your lack of ability to see that is not my fault. But don't force your wolf down my throat, because I'm not letting anybody force another wolf down my throat. Don't try to force me to be a sheep. But don't allow your inability to be anything except for a sheep affect the lives and health of other people. If this is fake and this doesn't help, then it needs to be known and it needs to be spread and it needs to be told. If there's even a hint that this could be real, then it needs to be known and it needs to be spread and it needs to be told. But either way, it doesn't need to be the ammunition for your next political fight. I'm not tired of Trump anymore. Hell, I'm not tired of Biden anymore. It's really not his fault at all. He doesn't even know he's running for president. I'm not tired of Republicans for undertaxing the rich and giving everybody they have on their payroll, that's a special interest group, some big favor every time they get in office. Because the Democrats do that too. And I'm not mad at the Democrats anymore. What difference does it make? The point is, I just want to be able to find information. I understand when I can't find accurate information on social media. That's not where you look for accurate information. I understand when I can't trust the news, because the news isn't built to be trusted. But we live in a new world, a new place. I mean, what's not shut down? Are the libraries even open? The internet's where we go. I don't believe in banning things and stopping things, and I believe in freedom all the way around. I just want the freedom to accurate information. And that's a two-way street. It requires for the people who have the ability to give me the information to be accurate, fair, unbiased. And it requires the rest of you to not suck and quit pushing things in spite of for your party in spite of the truth.